Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the StarCraft 2 ESL Pro Tour Weekly. We are live with the Europe edition again. It is nice and bright and sunny. It's 9 a.m. here in Las Vegas. And we've got some StarCraft to bring you. It's our first round, so you're always going to see some new faces in the first rounds of these brackets, since generally speaking, any of the actual high-level pros usually do not have to play. They actually get seeded based on their previous performances and the current number of ESL Pro Tour points they have. So if you're like, Nate, I don't know who these people are, could you please tell me? Well, thankfully, that's part of what my job as a commentator is to do. In the top right position, we have the blue Zerg player. He is Aster. No cheddar, so to speak, at the start of this game. And his opponent in the bottom left, the purple Protoss player, perhaps pulverizing his opponent, he is Molten. Why did I get the echo? Because his name's Molten, right? You think about Molten, you think about, like, you know, Endeavor incinerating the head of a Nomu. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of what goes through my mind. So we got $400 on the line for this weekly cup. We got StarCraft 2. What more could you really ask for? Nothing, Nathan. That's what I thought too as well, honestly. Like, there's really not a whole lot better than StarCraft. And being able to commentate these matches on Monday has been a lot of fun. I did a good job. I'm going to pat myself on the back. We got all the VODs uploaded during the week leading up to the new broadcast, with the finals being uploaded onto the YouTube on Sunday. If you guys always want to see the stuff a little bit faster, you can, of course, check out the Twitch VODs, twitch.tv/Nathanias. But I also have been uploading these in 1440p in a very crisp, high-definition setup on youtube.com/Nathanias. So, now with my 1,000 internet upload speed that I have now, it's been pretty easy for me to drop these for you guys and keep them coming and keep them flowing. Thank you, Forrest Funk, and thank you, Zaxman Rax. We got 4 months from Zaxman Rax and 28 from Forrest Funk. Base gods. If you guys hate alerts on the stream, that's fine. I don't really care. I gotta pay my rent, man. I gotta pay my rent. And with every event being canceled, I appreciate y'all's support. You are the best. So it's Stargate opening out of Molten. Nothing really crazy happened at the beginning of this. This Adept is gonna try and shave off a couple of lings while there is still no speed on the map, but as we all know, that's not an upgrade that takes too long to get. Usually we won't see Protoss players get crazy aggressive unless until they have the second Adept there. So with just one, you don't have that one-shot potential on drones, which makes it a lot easier for the drones to survive and stay alive, and also be able to kind of dodge everything that comes at them. So you really need to just be careful. Like, that's the most important thing. Be cautious. Don't give up too much opportunity. Really good poke there with the Adept. For those of you who perhaps haven't been able to catch up with too much StarCraft recently, there was a pretty big balance patch that recently dropped on the game. So the one that I'm going to point out that applies right here, creep tumors are now light. So they are now light structures. They join the stasis ward as the only light structures in StarCraft, as All-Stars Overlord goes in for a second look, and I can fix that color. There we go. So he's kind of trying to see if there's anything else as a follow-up, because obviously the Overlord is revealed by the Phoenix. Excuse me, the Phoenix is revealed by shooting the Overlord. But it's a lot easier for the Adepts to kill and deny the creep tumors. So that little poke to deny one tumor could end up, you know, really slowing down the aggressive capabilities of the Zerg. We'll have to see. The other Adept is still just chilling out by the third base. There is a single ling there. You see a lot of this, right? Zerg player wants to use these units to make sure you have good map vision. And the Queens, they're not quite as strong as they were before. Going back to that patch, the Queen's anti-air range has finally been dropped down to 7 again. I think it got buffed to 7 in, like, Heart of the Swarm, was it? But yeah, so the Queen no longer has that 8 range anti-air, and especially in StarCraft, as you get more range, like just the fact that it's going to apply you know, to both radii from the center position of the Queen. That's really a lot of coverage zone that's been removed from the unit. And a big part of the reason why that was done, of course, we did have the pickup range nerfed for Warp Prisms, as well as Liberator range got nerfed. But also so that these Oracles, which are great at defending attacks like this Ling Flood, he's really trying to squeeze through. I guess I shouldn't really use the words flood. It's a lot of Zerglings, but he's not. He's building drones behind this. But it makes it a lot easier for the Oracles to try and come in, snag a drone or two. At the competitive level, we have not really seen Protoss be able to stand up to Zerg for quite a while, honestly. We've definitely had some decent performances out of Terran players, as they benefited quite a bit from the patch as well. We can talk about that a little bit more later, since this is a PvZ. We have the Forge, Twilight. These are all things we kind of expect. I feel like this transition out of the Stargate was a little bit slow because he wanted to get the Robo. But it hasn't really done a whole lot other than just a few observers. I'm not sure that detection is necessarily at the forefront of his needs at the moment, but we will see. From Aster, everything looks pretty kosher. We've got +1 melee. You typically expect to see those be the focused upgrades, even if you get Hydralisks, because +2 melee banelings, one-shot probes. And I believe that even with the changes that they've made, they did tweak the banelings damage a little bit. It's still, I believe it's still one-shots probes once you get +2 melee. So the kicker is that the baneling now does like 2 less damage to units that are armored. So basically, the baneling is now a little bit more specialized. It still maintains its efficacy against light units, but it is simply worse against everything else. So if you see people trying to crash banelings into like immortals or stalkers, it's just not going to work quite as well as it did before. Definitely one of the other concerns that a lot of players had. I mean, we're not really seeing much creep spread in this game from Aster, so honestly, I can't say that it's going to be impossible for the Protoss to move out. But it was pretty normal when a Protoss did try to move out. You step on creep, no matter what army you really had, Zerg player just, you know, you banelings, they cost half a supply, right? So if you get enough of them, you can kill anything. And that is a little bit less true today. I have not personally been able to cast a bunch of PvZs since the new patch dropped. The patch dropped, I believe it was like the day before, right? The patch dropped on Tuesday. They always drop on Tuesdays. So we did our last cast on Monday. So this is actually going to be my first time casting the new patch. There was the Stay at Home Story Cup number 2 that took place this past weekend, but those guys go live around 2 or 3 in the morning for me. So honestly, I haven't been able to catch a whole lot of it. I did watch some of the later matches each day. I've been getting out of bed around like 7 a.m. Pacific time recently, which isn't too bad, but you know, I got to shower, take the dog out, etc., etc., etc. So I'm not one of those filthy nerds that wakes up covered in my own filth and goes and sits at their computer so that I can get my filth all over my chair and my desk. But so far, very, very mild-mannered PvZ. Not really seeing like Prism harass or anything. The Oracles have kind of sharked around. This Phoenix has somehow been flying around and not able to find the only Overlord that is out on the map. But you got the random links triggering the Stasis Wards. Storm is almost done, so that's going to be good against Hydras and Banes. Of course, you need to make sure that you can actually land them. If the Zerg can split properly, we don't usually see it be a game ender. These lings are going to chew through the Adept in the wall, but there is an Immortal there, so that's going to help batten down the hatches. I mean, if you could get through the Adept and then run into the main base, life is good. But usually you'll see a Protoss warp in units directly behind the assaulted force so that they can kind of double that wall up. We have, as we expect to see, quite a few banelings being added here. The Oracle's actually going to spot the Hydras. One of them will die. The second one, nope. So another thing that's probably worth pointing out, Revelation does not last anywhere near as long, but it costs less energy. So they kind of tuned it so that you could cast it more regularly. That way it would be a little bit of a better like temporary detection option. But it does not give you the same vision over these armies. However, it may not be necessary. Some Solid Storms coming down from Molten. He does run his own army into them. That makes me a little bit nervous. But without the creep spread, the Storms, they are raging. But there's still a lot of Banelings. 18 of them trying to make their way to the High Templar. They all blow up on an Archon. So not too bad for Molten. He does end up using the rest of his Storms. He's going to morph those High Templar. And without the Side Storm, these Hydras are going to be very difficult to handle. Archons are good, but they need to finish morphing. There we see as well the new Protoss ability, the overcharged shield battery, pulling back to it. It no longer requires energy for 14 seconds, and it heals shields twice as fast as a normal shield battery. So unfortunately, it is one of those global cooldown abilities, I believe. So you're not going to be able to see Molten use it for quite some time. A little bit of a bait there by All-Stars. He wasn't really ready to move in just yet. Now, more Banelings are coming in. We'll be able to deal with the Hydralisks. If Zealots can get onto the Hydras, then the Hydras kind of like die really quickly. But a little bit of a backstab counterattack. We got some Zealots fighting against drones coming down over here to this base. The Queen not focus firing down that Warp Prism anymore. And while this base is under a lot of fire, if it was possible to save these probes or get them out of there, he still has the 4th Nexus still alive. The Banelings are gone, but oh, those weren't fast warping zealots, were they? They do go down pretty damn quickly. Probes are coming off for fisticuffs. Now that Prism is still alive. He's going to warp in 4 more zealots inside the Zerg base. The Hydra's just not being microed to kill that Warp Prism. What on earth is he doing? I'm actually pretty impressed, though, that a handful of Hydras and Lings are still completely locking this base down. That's definitely not something that should have happened. If Molten had been able to get this damage in and somehow keep those probes alive, maybe recall them to the 4th, maybe if he had been able to recall the probes to his 4th base with the energy that he had here, he could have had quite a bit more income going for himself, but that main base doesn't have a whole lot of resources. The Natural is about to lose a mineral patch, and by the time he finally stabilizes, yeah, that's a ton of Hydralisks right there, my dude. That's a lot. And now he doesn't have the Prism anymore to backstab. He did build another one, but it's not really in a useful position anymore. Hydras are going to break down the wall. That actually means no sentries, no stalkers, no adepts. All he can do warp in are zealots and High Templar, which is kind of what he wanted to warp in, but those Banelings really ruined his day as he chills atop his ramp. He's going to bring the Archons from the backside, which actually could get some good hits on the Banes. He's actually going to split them off and try to go for the workers since they do have +2, but just a couple of Archons, even with the amount of damage that they do, even with the amount of hit points that Archons have, they're just not able to stand up to the test of this army. There's just way too many Hydralisks. They don't even have upgrades, but they don't need them. Those Zerglings with the +2, those Banelings with the +2. As you can see, if the Zealots get onto Hydras with nothing else there, they clap. They clap them cheeks pretty hard. Considering how expensive Hydralisks are, it's a good deal. It's a good trade for Molten, but I fear it's just a little bit too late. And there's the GG coming out. Aster takes game number 1. So that's the first map we have today of our match. And like I'm saying, if you're tuning in and you're like, Nate, this isn't Hero Marine, where's Showtime from last week? Just a reminder that we are in the first round of the bracket. So I'll take a second to show you guys the bracket, but just in case you're wondering, this is usually how it works, is we've got basically all the best players are going to be seeded because it starts at the round of 128. So a lot of players get seeded forward up. You've got Hero Marine, sort of, Arog, Skillis, Harstom, Gerald. These are a lot of really good players. Lambo, Clem, who don't actually have to play in the first round because of how good they are. So just a little refresher there for you in case anybody was wondering, in case anyone was wondering what's going on. And we're going to get into the next game. We are in the lobby for the next map. For everybody watching live, there is a 2-minute delay that is required for being able to broadcast the ESL Pro Tour matches. So I just want to let you all know that as much as I would love to be able to have this conversation with you in real time without any delay, that is simply illegal. And the StarCraft Ninja Police will come in and break my legs and brutally murder me if I were to stream this without delay. All right. We're in the lobby. We're just waiting for game number 2 to start. And there's the countdown. Let's get going. Did they change their colors? Am I crazy? Oh well. It's all good. Oh, wait. The Zerg is on the bottom. And the Zerg player did take game number 1 in the bottom left. We're leading this series. For these tournaments, it's all best of 3s until the semis. The semis and the finals are best of 5s. But yes, in the bottom left, he is Aster, leading 1-0. And in the top right, we have Molten SC, our blue Protoss player this time around. And I believe that Wardy or someone of the sort was talking in the lobby about a UK showdown. I believe that is the UK flag, right? I'll be honest with you guys. I don't know if England has like a separate flag from the United Kingdom or something. So if someone's like, Nate, that's the British flag or it's the English flag. I'm sorry. I'm just going to apologize in advance. I know that like Wales and Scotland have their own weird flags and stuff. That's a little bit outside my wheelhouse. That would be like if somebody tried to use like the Virginia state flag instead of the US flag for their portrait. And I'd be like, I don't know what that is. I only know the California flag because there's a bear on it. And I've played a lot of Fallout New Vegas, so I've seen it a million times. Also, weirdly enough, it is kind of posted up everywhere in that state. But yeah, I couldn't tell you what the Nevada state flag is. All I know is it's the silver state. I learned that. And I'm like, wow, so this is like the... I'm like, I guess for a lot of people, like silver, it's like, oh, I couldn't make it in California, so now you're here. You went from the gold state to the silver. I don't know. I'm not complaining. Not with this rent. We've got a pretty standard opening again from Aster. He's not doing anything weird. I think Molten just wants to make sure that he doesn't try to squeeze a fast third base. And that he gets queens first. Because, you know, you could put the cost of those first 2 queens to a crazy fast third if you thought that you had the opportunity to get away with it. But Molten's actually gone for an aggressive opening. His Nexus is a little bit delayed to make sure he can get that Cyber Core out fast. And it kind of gives me some like parting TVP vibes where he delays his Nexus a little bit just to have earlier access to that Cyber Core. Because what you're hoping for is maybe a lack of Ling speed or something a little bit greedy on the Zerg side, like taking this hatch too quickly. I think with the 2 queen opener and it was 6 Zerglings, right? Excuse me, 4. Well, I definitely don't think that it's going to be impossible for him to get some damage done. Probably want to chrono out another Adept. Yeah, he is going to. Don't know that he has the energy. Well, he does. What's he waiting for? That's the interesting question, because he's going for Stargate again, which makes plenty of sense. But maybe he wants to do some more pressure with his Adept, because last game, all he really got for his Adept was the Creep Tumor. And then the Adepts, he went up to like 5 that he had in his natural with the Immortal, but he didn't really ever do anything with the Adepts. And I don't know if I just missed that, like he brought them out with his first Prism. But I'm going to tell you that yeah, even if he did do that, they didn't really end up doing a whole lot last game. Now, did they? Based on the results. So things to keep in mind for the future, I suppose. Things to keep in mind. This Phoenix is going to kill the Overlord. And this is, I mean, we all know how this goes, right? He's just chilling. He's like, okay, well, obviously you have the Stargate. It's going to be the Oracle follow-up. All very normal. All very standard. Not really much here to be concerned about, if I'm being honest. +1 melee. This looks like basically the same thing from Aster. And considering that it worked so well in the first map, I'm not surprised. I think that that's a Zerg composition that's still going to be viable on a pretty high level. I'm not going to necessarily say on the highest level, but considering the difference in the changes and whatnot, like it's just hard. It's just hard for me because there weren't too many like direct straight up army buffs for Protoss, right? Not versus Zerg. They had the defensive buff with the shield battery. And just to show you again on mouse over, that's the battery overcharge. Yeah. So it increases the shield restore rate by 100% and allows it to restore shields without needing energy. So what that means is if your shield battery hits 0 energy and you're like, oh, well, overcharge won't help because it's out of energy. No, it'll still work. And if you have a shield battery with 200 energy, you could use the battery overcharge first, and then it will still have all of its energy left to continue to heal after the overcharge ends. So this is what I find interesting. He adds a couple of more Adepts to this base. There are a lot of Zerglings. We did have a pretty big amount of Lings thrown at him in the last game. Without the Oracles there, I'm not really sure that he can hold it. I guess I see it now, but he needs to put like another pylon here or a shield battery here. It's gonna, or this could be a little bit dicey. He does not have Resonating Glaives. I guess if the Lings choke up like that, he could kill a lot of them. He's gonna warp in another Adept on location. A bit risky. He's getting through most of the Zerglings. About half of them got killed, but I don't think, yeah, no. Without any upgrades or support, the Adepts just can't do it on their own. And it looks like he killed 2 drones with his Oracles before being pushed away by the Queens. I do think he can save the 3rd, but I mean, losing all of those Adepts just hurts so much because those Lings can kind of come back in, poke out. As long as those Oracles are forced to continue to change their weapons from being off and on, You know, it uses more power. And there's some truth to that as well. But next time you're visiting your dad and he's like, hey, make sure you turn off the light switch every time you leave the room. You should tell your dad that it actually uses more electricity to turn it on in the first place than it does to let it run for another 10 minutes between you being in the room or out of it. Fun fact. I'm not an electrician or an electrical engineer, so you probably shouldn't take my word for that. I took one honors course on energy efficiency, etc., etc. If you're going to be gone for a longer period of time, then you should turn it off. But some bulbs are so energy efficient once they get going, you know? I'm just saying, there's some LEDs out there that are kind of designed to run all the time without using much power or generating heat. So we do have a little bit of a difference this game. A lot of roaches. We did not have any in map 1. And I'm thinking that he's worried about an attack. But honestly, it looks like Molten's just trying to just execute last game's build better than he did here. It's going into Storm. And I'm guessing that Aster's plan is his Hydras took a while to get in play. Hydralisks need multiple upgrades to be useful. Like, they need speed and they need range. You have to have both to attack with them. Hydras move pretty quick on creep, but Aster's creep spread has not been something to write home about. It's better this game, but it's, you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to buy a postcard of Aster's creep spread and be like, this is what I came to Disneyland for, because it's not. So, with this many Ravagers and this many Lings, yes, it's good defensively. We all know that, but he could get on the aggressive like we saw last game. I mean, the Hydralisks are weaker on their own. They don't have, like, the Bile. Ravagers are big, they're beefy, they got more hit points. So I'm not opposed to seeing that. I do like putting a Ling there. You're trying to draw forces to this fourth, and maybe he wants to try and hit the natural. He's got to make up his mind. Storm is almost done. He's got about 20 seconds left on it. If he can hit before Psy Storm is ready, then I definitely see big opportunities here. But look at the Oracles go. I actually love this. Microwaves 1, microwaves 2. He's going to microwave a third Ravager. That's a lot of firepower being taken out of this army. The Banelings, though, they're going for the Templar right before Storm's done. And he does morph a bunch of them to save him. But at the same time, the Natural's been cracked open like a cold can of Bud Light. And I do not know how he is going to stop this attack again. He hits a little bit faster because he did not go for Hydralisks this time. And that prevented Storm from being available. So, yes, he did get Archons, but he doesn't have any Psy Storm, which makes a possible flood way worse. I just, man, everything just fell apart so hard. Well orchestrated attacks by Aster, and I love that he showed a very similar look to game number 1. But at the end of the day, we didn't have a Warp Prism come kill 20 probes either, or excuse me, 20 drones. So you've just got a Mortal Archon charge lot with some High Templar that don't have enough energy for Storm. And even the Oracles, pretty low on energy, honestly. You're not going to be able to see too much more usage of those. If he can keep the 4th up and try... Oh, I don't know, man. Nate, are you really going to try and do the caster thing when you talk about how this game's winnable? He's got 29 probes to 65 drones. But show them the income tab, Nate. Show the viewers the income tab. Now what do you think? Now who do you think wins this game? Now some guy in chat will say, but Protoss is OP. And then I'll remind them that Protoss hasn't won a GSL since Season 1 of 2017. 2017, ladies and gentlemen. Back when my puppy was just a twinkle in my eye. Oof. How's that income tab doing, Nate? Ooh, Zealots fighting Banelings. I mean, they should survive this, right? This one could. No, he won't be able to blow himself up. They'll try, though. They tried. The Overlords are trying to fly over in solidarity with the drones that are being pulled. Lots of corrosive biles being rained down onto this base. Did he over drone? Where does he not have enough units to actually deal with this Psy Storm? If Molten can force him into chokes, we know that Protoss has the capacity to be cost effective, but he cannot replace this army. So if he gets properly flanked, if those High Templar are not able to do what they need to, there's definitely very, very big opportunities for him to toss this one. Although he just caught like 2 High Templar being rallied. We got the Banes. We got the Ravagers. Here we go. Storms are going to try to hit the Lings on the right. They're trying to hit the Banelings here. They do manage to swing just close enough to get that splash all over the opposing forces. And Aster's going to take this series 2-0. GG. Well played.